Good evening, and welcome to another episode of Unstoppable Overcomers. And I'm your host, Dorothy Odell. I'm the founder of Unstoppable Overcomers Productions, where we are a full service media agency to get your story heard and be told from around the world. With that, though, I have the distinct pleasure of bringing Shelly Starks to the stage. Welcome, Shelly. How are you?
Thank you, Dorothy. I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I knew we were talking a little bit in the green room about weddings and stuff like that, and if you want to share that later, that's fine. I mean, we're in that moment. I feel like there was a special bond there, but for the world to hear who you are, share a little bit about who you are and a little bit about your overcoming story.
Sure. So I'm in the Tampa St. Pete area in Florida. For those of you that are watching all over the world, I just love that you have such a broad reach, Dorothy. I think this show is amazing and it gives people an opportunity to connect with people all over the world. So thank you for being the catalyst that does that. I actually am a behavioral analysis coach by trade. I do communications coaching for small and mid-sized businesses. And my story really started back in October of 2022. I had a radical hysterectomy, and my life kind of changed and went a different direction. I was doing the corporate thing again, and was stuck in that role and felt like that's where I was supposed to be. And, just because you're good at something doesn't mean you should do it. This was one of those things. And sometimes it takes God, the universe, whatever it is that you believe in, like shaking you to the core to get your attention to say, hey, not the right path. I have better and bigger things for you. And so as we kind of unpack that here as we go into this show, that's kind of where that started. And then it got me to, being able to be on shows like this and share my story to encourage people to find their authentic self and kind of live in that authentic way.
I love that you said that, and thank you for sharing that, because it seems a lot of people that I talk to lately, they're in that thing where like they're doing the 9 to 5 or 8 to 4 that they really they're done. They're like so done with it all, and but they're in that between they think they know what their purpose is and what their passion is and stuff like that, but sometimes even just taking that leap of faith and going, nope, I'm all in on what I want to do, and taking that leap of faith. And I like what you said. You got to be, God's got to basically nudge us out of our comfort zone to really get to get to that area.
Yeah, and sometimes, I probably was getting signals. I might be a little thick-headed on some things, very stubborn myself, and you kind of it's like this when I talk to business owners. You either, they're working in their business and on their business, and then they have a family life. And so like when you're in corporate setting, you have this whole dynamic where you have to be in it, right? Like you're like saturated in it. And by the time you get done at the end of the day, you're just kind of like, I just want this moment of solitude to spend some time with my family, feed everybody and then pass out. And it just seemed to be like that was the rat race. And that's why I think they call it that, right? The rat race. And for most people, having the extra energy to find something else on the inside of them is really, really challenging. And so that's why I think that whole health thing that hit me upside the head just really shook me to the core and helped me figure out. And it wasn't just by myself. This is a journey. I have a whole bunch of people that have taken this journey with me. I had a career coach, Grizel Scarantino, who was just phenomenal, who took me in whenever I was just like a puddle of a mess, of all of the emotions, and gave me some direction with tools that helped me figure out where my passion actually was. And it really wasn't, what's interesting is that it really wasn't if I had asked myself, like truly been honest with myself and taken the time, I probably would have uncovered a lot of this. But, this is what's so great about even what we're doing now is we get iron sharpens iron, and you figure out the things that maybe you can't see. Maybe it's your blind spot and somebody else can help you see it.
Right. I love that. Blind spots. They're like everywhere. If you want to recognize them, a lot of people, have their head buried and they don't want to see that. Sometimes it's easier to just like bury your head and say, nope, I just going to stick with this right now, right? But I don't know about you, but when you get to a place where sometimes the not taking the chance out is the biggest regret than, you know, staying where you're at.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's hard to imagine, like you have to like put yourself in that place. Like if I fast forward 20 years and I didn't actually take this leap of faith, or I didn't decide to bet on me. This is what I tell people all the time. I just have to choose every single day to bet on me, you know? Because corporations, they have their agendas and they have their loyalties, and I don't want to burst anybody's bubble, but it's not to you, and it's really to their bottom line, and that's what they're meant to do, and that's okay. But that's not always where I'm meant to be or where other people are meant to be. And at some point you have to bet on you, and it's hard to do it. But if you set forth a plan, and you don't have to say I'm going to do it on this date, right? You can like start to work towards it, start doing some personal development to figure out what it is that really lights you up, you know, gives you that fire inside that makes you be like, oh my gosh, I'm making an impact here. What is that? And maybe it's not a full-time job situation. Maybe it's a volunteer thing. But you know, you have to figure out those things that give you energy, because there's so many other things that just zap you of energy.
Absolutely. So, what made you decide to go into the coaching aspect, though? Like when you were going through your health challenges, what made you decide to steer to this direction?
Well, I had been a coach other times. This is my third consulting business over the years. And you know, sometimes like when COVID happened and there was like a pandemic that nobody could have possibly, you know, foreseen happening, I wasn't prepared for that. A lot of businesses weren't prepared for that, and so I had to go back to that corporate setting. And that's the thing I think I have to say, at least in my gut, I feel like I'm supposed to say, nothing has to be forever. Sometimes it's a matter of you need to just get yourself in that place to recover and have a steady paycheck and be, you know, have some comfortable, you know, pieces there. But then once you get to that point, you can kind of flip off the like survivor mode and can kind of go into like, you know, development or investing in you mode. That's when you can start, you know, figuring out what actually drives you in tandem with what you're doing, because it's not threatening your stuff. You know, it's not like you're leaving your job tomorrow. But what I was sharing earlier about using a coach to help me get to that point was crucial, because again, I had blind spots and I couldn't see it. The very first thing I said to her was, you know, I've owned businesses. At the end of this 90 days, I'm not looking to be an entrepreneur and own businesses. Like, so take that one off the table. And she's like, okay. She just wrote it down. And what she did was she helped me understand through a series of tools. I uncovered what I was supposed to do. She didn't tell me. It was like, here are the calling things that are like coming to, you know, these are the things that you're drawn to. These are the things that really light you up. These are the things, and all of these different tools helped me see that.
Right. I think it's so important. Like you nailed it. You're a coach, but you have a coach. So
Yeah.
it's important because we all reach our glass ceilings, right? And so to get past the next glass ceiling, we need a coach or a mentor or somebody to say, wait a minute, you know, these are my next steps, because we don't know what we don't know. If we knew what our next steps would, we'd already be there.
I think that, you know, a long time ago, I had a mentor that I just happened into this person as a boss. They were my boss, and they ended up being a really incredible person that said, you know, Shelly, you should never stop learning. Number one, if you ever think you've arrived, you're wrong. And you need to make sure that you're constantly seeking out the things that, like, you know, really get you up in the morning. Like, even if it's walking on the beach or, you know, taking a bike ride, if that's something that fuels you, you got to use that, because there's so many other things that deplete you. And so I think mentors or having other coaches that help you take the situation you're in and kind of separate that from where is it that we need to go. I see some things in you that you can't see yet, because I've been here, I've done that, I've seen these things. I see characteristics or, you know, things in you that I think the world needs to see. And sometimes it's hard for us to hear those things because we don't see ourselves in that light, you know. But when somebody else who pours into you sees that and believes that in you, it gives you just enough of a spark of belief to start believing in yourself.
100%. It's funny, and over the 200 plus people that I've interviewed, a lot of people just want to be heard, right? They just want to be able to share from their heart, share their story. And a lot of people don't take the time to listen, right? And so by giving the opportunity and the platform for people to grow, because I mean, I've had some people on here like, I've never been on a podcast before, like, or a show before, and I don't think I can do this. I'm like, you can do anything. We're just two friends having a conversation, and by the end of the hour they're like, man, you made that so easy, and just because I ask the right questions, I listen to them, and generally I care about people. Like, when you come on here, I choose you because I believe, number one, you're interesting. Number two, I feel there's some kind of connection. And number three, I believe that people can learn from you. So thank you for coming on and sharing that, because, there's a lot of people that, don't see that. And so thank you for definitely coming on here and sharing that bit, because that's
Sure.
basically what people want.
Yeah. And, I think whenever you are in that receiving mode, then you're in a growth mode. So, like, if you're in a shutdown mode, where you're actually just the one that's sending out messages and not being open to receiving, you miss out. I had this really funny thing that happened once. So, all these years I've had mentors, and they always like blow my mind with different things. And I take a lot of notes and, go back and review those. And then there was this moment where I realized with a couple of my salespeople that I was the mentor. There was this age that happened, and it was close to that 40 mark. And it was like, all of a sudden I was like, whoa, it rocked me to my core. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm the mentor. And then this overwhelming responsibility. I'm like, I don't know if I can be the mentor. I've always been mentored. And then, and then whenever I was still talking to my mentor, they said, you know what, Shelly, here it is. Here's the actual key, is that you've been through so many different experiences and had so many things that you've learned the hard way. And if you don't invest that or tell other people, we lose it with you. So somebody else doesn't get the opportunity to get past this point where you've worked so hard to get, and compounding, like being able to, leapfrog to different levels of ability, because they're having to learn it from scratch when you might have been able to teach them some things and get past those.
Oh, 100%. I just have to ask, are you the oldest in your family?
I am.
Okay. So
why do you ask that? I love that. I love when people do this.
Okay. So I'm the oldest of my family, and everybody comes to me. Like, everybody comes to me. And the oldest grandchild, oldest child, I'm the mentor. And I was the fixer. That was my thing. I was the enabler, which I didn't realize that's what I was doing. The fixer, and everybody comes to Dorothy because Dorothy will do it, or Dorothy will fix it. And so after spending 40 years of my life in this role, and after my dad passing away and my mom telling me, you've always enabled us, I was just like, oh. So I calmly, and I actually, and I took it very well. And the old me before the personal development probably would have like shut right down. And we probably wouldn't have been a family, but the new me is just like, okay. And I took an honest look at myself, and I had to say, okay, you're right. And that, since that moment on, I've allowed them to just do it all themselves. If it, because she's a widow, she's been by herself for, like, she's always been married. She met my dad when she was 16. So that's a long time, right? They were married for 47 years, together for 50. So, I mean, that's a long time. And so now, unless it's truly at the critical point, I don't step in. My brother, nope, it's your monkey, your circus. My nephews, nope, that's your monkey, your circus. I even my husband now, I'm like, nope, that's your monkey, your circus.
I think the intention is always, that you just want to help them. And you're like, I don't
Yeah.
want my family to suffer or my friends to suffer. And something that I learned a long time ago, and part of my, communications coaching is that we have to ask a bunch of questions. And now I am a parent of adult children, it's a totally different world to parent adult children. And I can't give them advice anymore. I can't like tell them what to do anymore. Now I have to give them suggestions and my questions. Have you thought about this? Did you do this just yet or did this happen? Like giving them the whole like, well, what do you mean did that happen? Is that going to happen? And then they have to invite me to offer that information, because then the defensive gates go down. They're open to that, as opposed to me just coming in and, like you said, I'm going to like save the day here. Let me give you all the answers. We'll fix this. We'll check this off the list and we'll move on to the next problem. you know, Definitely feel that. I relate to you on that.
Well, it's funny. Okay, so I was all growing up, my family, my parents were ill with one thing or another, from diabetes to heart and stroke, lupus, you name it. I've been through the spectrum, the kidney disease, heart disease, whatever. So then I married my husband, who's a diabetic. And so I'll tell him, okay, you need to do this, this, and this. Well, what are you, a doctor? I'm like, no, I should have a doctorate by now, but the amount of medical terminology and medical stuff that I've been through with my parents. However, this is what you need to do. Does he listen? No, because you don't listen to your wife, right? Because why would you do that? So, in the long run, he goes finally, after weeks of suffering, he'll go to the doctors and he'll say, so I said, so how did it go? And he goes dead quiet. And I'm, well, tell me what the doctor said. Okay, you were right. I'm like, oh, really? So you could have had 2 weeks where you weren't in as much agony or discomfort, but that's okay. It's okay. And then he'll say, okay, Dr. Dorothy. And I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yeah,
But
totally. I can appreciate that.
if I don't know about you, but I went through these experiences to help others. And so you can learn from my mistakes. You don't have to make your own. However, if you want to fall flat on your ass, that's fine with me.
Yeah.
I'm here to be there as a support system afterwards. And not to say I'm right 100% of the time, but at least a good 85 to 90%. I think that's
Well,
a great I think that's
you
a
have a
great thing.
PhD in this certain, like, I always used to joke and say my daughter, our oldest, she had a lot of medical issues. And until she was about 12 years old, her esophagus did not connect to her stomach. And so we had to have lots of surgeries. And I have said since day one, I have a PhD in that child, in her physiological, makeup, because, I'd have to go into the ER and have to give them all the things. And they're like, how do you know all of this? I'm like, well, this has been my life for many years now. So
Right.
we relate on a lot of things. That's great.
Well, that's why that's why I think we were connected. It's funny. I've asked God to connect me with the people that I need to connect with,
Yeah.
and it's not like, unless there's something rolling in my gut, like I've been connected with a lot of amazing people, and you're one of them. So very thankful for that. So I have to ask, what motivates you?
Well, I really enjoy helping people learn to have this communication, this dialogue. I realized over all of these years of different coaching things, sales coaching, leadership coaching, conflict resolution, all these different things, that all of that's great. And I have friends that do that and I can refer business to them for that. But the thing that really motivates me is when the light bulb goes off and they realize, oh, I actually can change the conversation, because not control the other person, but I can use the tools that I have to help their defensive gates go down, make them feel heard and understood. And then our conversation just goes even further. But that light bulb moment that happens, it really is like, it just really excites me. It's what motivates me to do what I do. And I saw it happen through our blended family. And that's really where this kind of birthed, was that, we had this blended family of two teenage girls. Obviously, we were divorced parents, so there were four parents. They were only children, so they had to share a bathroom, which was a big deal. All the hormones, and then, oh, by the way, behavioral style wise, they're on opposite sides of the spectrum, like as far apart as you can possibly be. So they communicate, make decisions, process very differently. And I just realized one day, I was like, I have this, communications coaching background. My family's going to have to become my client, because we literally are not communicating in this household. It was a disaster. And so I sat down with everybody and said, I know this is going to be weird, but I'm going to teach you some tools. And fast forward now, almost 10 years with us being our blended family. And I was just with them at one of the oldest one's wedding a couple weekends ago. And even then they talked about using behavioral styles, or identifying behavioral styles to have a conversation maybe that was a little more uncomfortable, or I needed to be able to share something, but I didn't know how to share it. But then if I thought about their behavioral style and kind of framed it that way, it softened it more. It didn't come from some place that they got defensive. And so that really drove me to want to do this for other people, like help other people learn to do this. Families is the bonus that happens on top of what we do at a business, but they get to go home and use that, tool with their family too.
Right. That is so great. I forgot that you said that in the pre-interview, and I'm glad you brought that up. With especially with blended families, you're right that there's that dynamic, especially if they think differently, communicate differently, and all of that, and especially if they're with different sexes. But still, it's my dad always had this saying: girls can never be friends with more than one other girl, because there's always going to cause some drama. My dad said that at a very young age. Now, my dad's the oldest of 5 kids in his family, so he's seen it, and he's a mixture of boys and girls in his family. And for some reason, that stuck with me. And I was like, no, I'm going to make sure that we change that dynamic, because I truly believe that more than women can be friends. And it's funny, growing up, I didn't have that, but now now that I'm grown up, like there is a tribe of us that we get along so well. It's like sisterhood. And you're right. Starting from your own family, though, that's what's powerful about what you just said. Starting with your family first and making them your client. And then, 10 years later at your daughter's wedding, they get to say, wait a minute, mom was right. Mom, we're very thankful that mom was able to do that for us so that you could communicate. Because I don't know about you, but there's nothing worse than having a blended family that doesn't get along. And
Very hard.
Somebody who has a stepson, I mean, there are days that I'm just like, wow. And then there are days like this weekend, which was amazing. That's when you like, thank you, Jesus, if things are working.
Yeah.
But when you're in the thick of it, how do you, like, what is your advice to those people that are listening to this now and they have that blended family and they're ready to pull their hair out?
Well, I think first of all, like, we tend to, especially with family, tend to go to more of an emotional side than when we would at like in a work setting. In a work setting, we kind of can sometimes set that emotion aside and look at it more, from a direct, what's happening with the actual scenario. But when we're at home, and in any time I'm with my family, I have to remember this. Like, even with my mom, like sometimes, she and I did that growing up, right? And occasionally we'll still do that. And I'm like, oh, wait a second. I don't have to combat her with the same level of aggression that, is coming. I don't have to do that because I have a tool not to do it. But it's hard when it's your family and you get emotional about it. And so I just took this a little bit at a time with my family. So I'll give you an example. I'm in the middle of writing a book about this because I really feel like there are families out there that will really benefit. And it just so happens to be my story, and it blends so nicely into my communications coaching, but it really gives the true depiction of where it came from. So I would take small little examples. Like one of my children, she's literal. everything. She's super detail oriented, but she's literal. So she didn't understand inferences. Like that was just not her behavioral style, right?
Mhm.
And Jay and I, when we first got together, I mean, he's a jokester. He likes to kid around and likes to infer things and make things, kind of funny. And we were having a huge issue, and it was silly. It was like just taking out the trash. Here she's a teenager. She can drive a vehicle. She should be able to remember to take the trash out. Okay. Like there's some things that you should be able to do. And he would say things like, can you, that trash isn't going to take itself out. She just
Yep.
like walked through the kitchen, didn't say anything, didn't acknowledge it, just nothing. And he'd look at me, he's like, really? I just said that trash isn't going to take itself out. I'm like, honey, you're not understanding. You need to say, can you please take the trash out?
Yeah.
Like, she is so literal that she did not even, you didn't address her, right? You
Yeah.
just went straight to the inference and she missed it. So I said, just try it. I know it sounds crazy and you're frustrated, but just try it. So the next time he tried it and she just took the trash out. Like there was no fight, there was no issue, there was no frustration. He wasn't upset for the rest of the night because
Right.
she's an adult and should, or teenage adult and should be trying, doing this. I'm like, honey, this is not hard, although that's something so minute. Think about the ripple effect that happens in our family dynamic when it's constantly happening like that, on top of hormone. Hormone stuff is a whole nother ball game. But if there are some things that you can help them with and direct them and guide them in a different way where they don't feel like, you're attacking them. She always felt attacked whenever we'd be like, did you not understand when he said the trash isn't going to take itself out? She's like, no, he didn't say anything to me. You're like, oh my gosh. Okay. All right. We're going to change the slight change in that sentence. You can hear it, right?
Right.
And
Oh my
it
gosh,
changed the
that is
whole
so funny.
yeah, change the whole dynamic.
But it's true. He didn't ask her to take the garbage out. And this is, and I get this because my husband's a jokester and he thinks everything's hilarious, and then he goes too far, and then I get upset,
Right.
And then there's a whole nother dynamic there. And I'm just like, okay, you really got to understand, what I grew up with, the bullying, all that. I've asked you several times, not, a joke, okay,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
taking it to a different degree, you just got to stop.
Yeah.
And so, but you're right, communication's key on everything.
It affects everything. And sometimes, I have friends that call me and have for years that would just say, hey, Shelly, can I run something by you? And it wasn't because I was a communications coach, I was a friend. But I gave them a little bit of insight as to maybe why this was happening or why, maybe try to say it this way, try to ask an open-ended question instead of telling somebody something. Adults don't like to be told what to do. They like to be asked their opinion. And it's just small little nuances that, we can change that really have a huge impact.
Oh, 100%. And it's funny because I used to get so upset. I would have an expectation that if I said something, my husband should respond back, right? I used to have that expectation. I've noticed though, if you give a man a nugget and he'll sit on it, and when he's ready to talk about it, he will come back and things will go like you want it to go. But to expect something when you like want it right now, because as women that want instant gratification or instant results, we want to just fix everything now. And that's not how they work.
Yeah, I mean, the different male and female is a whole nother dynamic on that. Like it's not just about how you problem solve, how you make decisions, how you handle stress, because that's a behavioral style that helps you. Like you can identify that within yourself. But then if you layer on top of that, like teenage hormones or male and female dynamic, or just it's hard to it's amazing that we get through any day of the week and that we actually live with someone like that's an absolute miracle as humans.
Oh, 100%. Like I look at my parents and like I said, they were married for 47 years and I'm just like, I don't know how. I really don't.
Yeah.
And as my husband's an introvert, I'm borderline introvert extrovert. I do need my downtime and I need some time to myself. But most of the time, I'm like, go, go, go. But I'm just like, there are days I'm just like, remember when you were in your apartment all alone and you wanted a husband? So remember those moments.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that you can, that is really helpful is there are people that are out in the room processing. So they're processing outside of themselves, like out loud. And then
Mhm.
there are people that are internal processors. And the people that are internal processors does not mean they don't have something to say. They've got, and I don't say introverts and extroverts. I actually use internal and external processors because there is a negative connotation to introverts because I feel like that means that they don't have a voice. But when you're an internal processor, you might just need a little bit more time. So I love how, like, with my daughter that I just mentioned, she is actually an internal processor, and it took us a while to figure out that I could not force her. Like, if I'm 90 to nothing in the morning, right, getting ready, trying to get stuff done, and I ask her to do something and she just doesn't move, it used to make me crazy. Like, I would just be furious, and I finally realized after she came to me and we have been working on this whole, communication stuff. And she's like, Mom, I just need a minute to figure it out in my day. Can I just tell you before we leave the house? Like something so tiny like that. I didn't get amped up and frustrated. I didn't yell at her or get her frustrated. It didn't spiral two people's day. All we had to do was figure out one little thing. Okay, in the next 30 minutes before we leave, can you let me know if you can do this?
Yeah.
I mean, that changed our entire dynamic because she needed to process internally.
Yeah. I love that you said that. I love that you said that as somebody, like I said, I don't know how my parents stayed married for 47 years because there was not a lot of communication. They would actually communicate through me until I couldn't take it anymore. And then told them, go back to, talking to each other. And so when I got married very late in life. And this is my husband's second marriage. And my husband's not a communicator. Historically was not a communicator. Let's put it that way. He
Yeah,
communicates better now. And so do I. But I've like we've had to I've had to force myself to go, wait a minute. He doesn't he doesn't know what I need. And for somebody who sees a need, I feel it right away. Where I figure everybody else in the world should see the same thing I do. But unfortunately, y'all don't. And so I can
true.
see the trash needs to be taken out. The bag is overflowing, but he doesn't, he'll complain that quit putting more garbage into it, but nothing gets done, right? Because to him, it's just, I don't know, whatever the process is for him, or I'll see that something else needs to be done around the house, so I'll just do it. Unless if I tell him to do it, he'll do it, or ask him to do it, not tell, but ask him to do it. That's a different story. And I think as women, we need to really realize that, wait a minute, our husbands will give us the world if we just tell them what it is we want.
Yeah. Trying to get them to read our minds is really unfair. And quite frankly, I don't know how you are, but I don't think anybody wants to be in here because it's a little crazy.
100%.
It's a lot going on. As Jay says, he's like, I need you to close a few windows before you finish that story because I'm usually telling him 4 stories at one time.
So I'm not the only one that does that?
No,
Oh,
that's
good.
another out in the room processing thing.
I'll be telling you a story while thinking of three others in the back of my head, and then trying to remember in my head something I gotta tell Kimberly after the show. So it's just like my
Yeah,
brain is like everywhere.
yeah. Yep, that's normal, especially for out in the room processors.
Well, thank you for telling me that I'm not crazy.
Not crazy. And it's really fun to, uncover some of these little tips and tricks, like they're not hard. It's not like rocket science. And that's why I started this consulting business, was because I thought, you know what, I could do all these other coaching things, but I don't want to, because this is so important. I feel so called to help people and give them actionable, easy tools, things that are, they can take and use like today. They don't need to change all of their behaviors and change all of these tools. And, it's just a few minor tweaks that make a huge difference.
Right. So who would you say would be your ideal client?
I typically work with professional services companies. So things that are companies that have, I don't know, anywhere from 5 to 50 employees, but they typically have a lower turnover. So those professional services are things like architects and engineers and legal firms and healthcare, offices, but not really the ones that have like a ton of turnover, like in hospitality and construction. They're not going to spend the money on investing, and it's a higher turnover rate, right? But I will say that when I do an intake with an owner of a business, it's really important to me that they want to not invest money, that they invest them in their people. So when they want us to come in and do some communications coaching with them, we have to say, okay, everybody's involved from the top down. Everybody gets involved, because otherwise you can't reinforce new behaviors when I'm not here, and I'm only here a couple of times a year. So it's not an easy thing to just be like, okay, fix my people. That's just not really the best fit. But now after COVID, I think a lot more business owners, and especially because of not being able to find talent, I think business owners are saying, okay, I need to utilize the talent I have, get the most out of the talent that I have here, and then make sure that I'm investing so that people want to come and work for us. So like, this culture is something they want to be a part of.
Right. I love that. And you're right. You have to have a buy-in from the top, or it's not going to work. Right. It's with anything. If company culture is everything, but it starts from the top and goes down.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I always ask at my quarterly check-ins, I ask the leaders or the CEO, when was the last time you used, this tool that we did? Like, because the accountability is important. And it's usually, what's interesting is that they're on board, and then there's usually a handful of, of their employees that really get excited about this, and they start like implementing all of the tools across the board. And then I usually get a phone call from the owner saying, they're actually running it and they're running with it now, and it's really making a big difference in not only our internal culture, but also the external culture with our clients.
Right. I love that. You're right. Because if you get, I always say it's an inside job. Healing's an inside job. You heal the inside, it's going to help the outside. So from the top down in your company, and then it spreads out to your clients.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love, love, love that. So what's the one thing that most people wouldn't know about you?
I think I've only ever said this on one other show. My birth name is Carrie Underwood.
No way.
Now, I am an OG because I'm a lot older than her, but it's really funny. I know. And I use this as like an icebreaker at like, I can't say it on too many shows, or I won't be able to use it as an icebreaker, but it's funny because they say, tell us one thing, and you have to find the person in the room. Nobody ever figures it out. Because my middle name is Michelle, so that's where Shelly comes from. And then I had been married, so that was my married name was Starks. So they don't ever put it together,
That is cool. So I asked that question on one of my other shows, one of my veteran first responder shows, and he come back to me and he says, "Okay, you ready for this?" I'm like, "Okay." He goes, my distant cousin is LL Cool J."
Oh, cool. Yeah.
I'm like, I'm 1 degree of separation from LL Cool J.
That is awesome.
I was just like, damn.
That's
I,
so fun.
I,
You never know. And this is a great question because, some people probably just go kind of surface level on it, but I think it's always fun to have something. Oh, what there at certain networking things they'll do like two truths and a lie or something like that. They'll try to and you have to like, oh, I climbed, this mountain or whatever, and they have to kind of figure out which one was not the truth.
it's so funny that you said that because for the first time I did that on social media a couple weeks ago, and I threw out done a half marathon. Um, I forget the others. Anyways, it was all stuff that could be or not, and depending on how people perceived me, and this is a sports family, so that they got it with, what is the I think my favorite thing to watch was basketball is what I put, and that was the wrong answer. Football, yes. Basketball, no. And so a shout out to Kelly Gagne because she did get that right, and I was supposed to shout her out 2 shows ago, so I shouted her out tonight. So yeah, I just like making things spontaneous. I used to go to high school, or no, public school with her, so she was the first one to answer correctly.
Very fun.
And back then, I wasn't a sports fanatic, and I wasn't racing, and I wasn't doing all that fun stuff. But yeah,
That's great.
cool.
I
I,
love it.
thanks. I love that you said that. And so, who would you say would do what? You don't have to go into details, but what kind of, which one of your clients has been one of your favorite, or do you have a funny story about one of your clients without giving their names out? Because I don't want you to do
Yeah, I
that.
never give their names out. So, which one is my favorite? I think that's a little tough. However, I will say that there was a client that had, you know, a lot of really young people in their whole culture. That is just the nature of it, right? And they, having the attention span, these kids with their phone, like all of the things, right? I had this one executive director said to me, "There's absolutely no way that this age group of people at our company is going to do this. Like they're not going to do it." And the CEO goes, "You know what? I think that they will." And he said, "There's just no way. I push this ball uphill every single day. They're not going to do this. If they don't want to do it, they're not going to do it." So if they don't want to do it, you're right. They aren't going to do it. However, I would love to know what it is that you think is not going to happen. And so he's like, "Well, there's just no way that they're gonna take this behavioral style stuff and use it every day." And what he didn't know was that I typically have that flipped, right? The older the group is, the little bit harder it is for them to want to adopt these things. Um, Not always, but so we fast forward, we have a 3-part session: connect, communicate, grow. And after that third session, they're like clicking, like it is full on clicking. I'm asking for examples on how they're actually using it. They can bring them like right up. They're doing it every single day. He calls me and he's like, "I would have bet money." And I said, "Well, you did bet money. You paid me for it. And I actually won that one."
So he kind of lost twice or
He's
won
like,
twice.
right. Like, well, you kind of did. Yeah. But I mean, I think the biggest thing is that sometimes we put these boundaries or these like things around what we think is going to happen with our people. Or my people never do that. They'll we've got too many. Our business is too unique. Our customers are different. Our all the things. When I was coaching, the second coaching business I had, we had a really fun game that we would play with every single client. And we had a big board, like like a digital board, so I could save the screen, right, after every session. And I would ask them, what are the top 10 things that make your business unique? Because when you're doing sales training, they bring up all kinds of things that the reason they can't do something is because this is unique in their business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not unique. And that's the funny part. So they list off the whole team. They do a whole team exercise and they list them off. And every single time, there was at least 7 that were the same from every single business. So I would just bring up screen after screen, like all in a row, screen after screen after screen. And sure as anything, I'm like, can somebody read this one from 3 weeks ago from this team? What about this one from 2 months ago? And then, like, literally the light bulbs are like, wait a second, maybe we are making this harder than it needs to be. Like, this isn't necessarily have to be this hard. So,
Right. I love that. And see, and you can have fun while doing it. And that's what I love, right? Changing the company culture and changing the communication styles within the company, I believe is one of the one things that definitely for 2024 business owners should be doing if they haven't already done it. I'm not saying every business owner has not already adopted that. And for sure, if you're watching this episode or happen to see the replay, or hear us on Spotify or see us on our Roku channel with this episode, definitely get a hold of Shelly, and have her come in and definitely work her magic within your company.
thank you. Yeah, I am so thrilled that you have this platform and it's going, all across the world, because that's the great part about, I mean, if you have to have an upside after COVID, it's that, we don't have to be in person to do these things anymore. It's great to meet in person and it gives a different layer. But people they're more, welcoming of having a digital, training room. And, now I get to help people all over the world instead of just in my own little state.
I love that. All right. Well, now we're come to the show. Time of the show where we bring the amazing Kimberly, our roving reporter, on. Welcome, Kimberly.
Hello.
Hi, Kimberly.
Hello. It's so great to be here.
Well, where are you at tonight?
Well, I am in the lovely town of Valparaiso, Indiana. I'm actually home.
Oh my.
I know it's
shocking.
It's absolutely shocking. It's so rare. But yes, I am home. I am home.
Cool.
And it's good. It is very good.
So, what news have you got to share tonight?
Well, let's see. First of all, the show's amazing. The both of you are amazing, and I just love what you're doing. It's just so great to see so many opportunities starting to happen for people, where they can really break up they can get off the treadmill that they don't even know they're on. Something we like to say a lot is, we're fish swimming in water, but we don't know there's any water.
Yeah.
And I just really appreciate what you do, to help people go, oh, wow, check it out. There's water here. Didn't even know.
Or that you can visit other ponds. Like you're not stuck.
Yeah.
We're not stuck. That's the thing,
No, it's so great. It's so beautiful. Before we get into the fundamentals, to answer your question, Dorothy, just to and I'm mastering the art of this, right? Because I'm just so in a space where we're like, no, it's all about the show and it's all about the guest, right? Something very fun that we are offering now with Kimbra is we're starting May 15th a book club, and super fun. And it is it's actually a money cleansing detox. It's a 30-day detox program, and if you're a Kimbra member, you get to come for free. It's $197 for 5 weeks program. And it's super awesome. And I'm inviting everyone to come check it out. You will have a great time cleansing your money. So whatever might be on your money, whatever yuckies might be in your financial circle of your life, you get to cleanse it, detox it, and I guarantee you will have a great time doing it. And Shelly, to your point, right? It is the pond that you may be swimming in with your money is really, really dirty, and you don't even know it. So you might be doing all the right things. And if your water's dirty, you know, or you're not in the right pond, as Shelly would say, uh, that's what's off, right? So we're very excited. It's grounded in some amazing fundamentals by the woman who wrote the book, built out the program, and it's guaranteed. Ooh, this is good. I forgot about this part. It's guaranteed to you will locate a guaranteed over $600 in the 30 days that you didn't know where it was. Just saying.
So you get 3 times the return
Oh, well, then there's
on
that.
your investment.
Well, 5 times. Well, yes, you're right. Yes. So you pay full price. You pay $197 if you're not a Kimber member.
Right.
If you're a Kimber member, you actually get to go for free. So you get the full
Thank
6
God I'm a
months.
Kimber member.
Huh? What?
I thank God I'm a Kimber member.
Yeah, right. And you could become a Kimber member, then you get to go for free, right? So then there's that, right?
There's that.
And we're offering for Kimber members the opportunity to invite others, and we have a half off promo code. So there's that. So more to come on all of that. We'll make sure Dorothy has all the information she needs when we post the show. And yeah, that's the newest Kimbra offering. Something new for everyone to play in. So
We have one.
yeah. So with that in the background, Shelly, we would love to hear your fundamentals. And Shelly, I don't know if you know this or not, but we actually spell that capital FUN, little DUH, capital MENTALS.
Yes, I did see that.
Yeah.
That's fun.
It is. And they're simple, right? Like, don't make it hard. Don't make your life hard, right?
Yeah. So my 3 fundamentals are, and I'll explain, kind of little snippets on each, but it's seek to understand yourself, because I don't think that you can understand others until you know you. Seek to understand others and be intentional about both, because we are at a place now where we have digital overload. We have so much coming at us. There's so much information. There's so many things that we can do. There's not a moment that you could be bored. Okay. Like ever. Not like when I was a kid and playing outside could potentially be bored. That's not happening anymore. And so being intentional to me is something that, I have to get up and actually do as a practice. It's almost like a behavior. And what that means is that we're not static as beings. I'm not the same person I was when I was, even before October of 2022. I'm a very different person now than I was then. And so in a constant evolution, I have to learn to understand myself and where I'm coming from and the things that drive me and motivate me. And then I need to be able to turn around and frame conversations and understand other people. And if I'm not intentional about it, life will just fly right by. I'll be distracted by so many other things, and I won't get it done. At the end of the day, I will not have been intentional to understand somebody else more, and to learn to communicate better.
Beautiful. Those are fantastic fundamentals. What do you suggest, right, for people inside those fundamentals? To your very point, right? Seek first to understand yourself, then seek to understand others, and be intentional. Inside those 3 fundamentals, what would you say, like, how would you recommend for the people that go, yeah, sounds good, but I don't know how to do that? Like, for example, like I'm thinking of someone right now who'd be like, well, if I seek to understand myself, I'll never talk to another human ever because I'll never understand myself. Right? It's possible. So what fundamentals, what executional fundamentals do you have that could really help them execute your fundamentals?
Well, the very first thing I would say, and we talked about this earlier, Dorothy and I did, is to find a mentor. And it doesn't need to be a therapist. So you're not necessarily uncracking the code from the inside of you out. Like, you don't have to start and go, I'm going to heal every wound that there is, childhood wound and all the things. You don't need to do that, but you should be honest with you and figure out like what actually gets me up in the morning. What do I like to do? When I do
Mm.
those things, do I do them because I have to do them, or is it because I really enjoy doing them? Am I using my, my heart or my gut to guide and direct me during the day, or am I just on autopilot and just mechanically going through, or just going through the motions because that's what I do every day, right? I mean, I think we have to like be shaken, like wake up a little bit. Like we need to feel something, and sometimes looking inside is not easy, but that's where a mentor comes in. Dorothy and I were talking about my mentors sometimes see my blind spots, which helps me understand how to navigate around that, or what to work on first. You don't have to work on everything, but if you literally get so shut down that you don't work on anything, like you're going to be stuck in the same place. So just ask yourself, is this what I want ultimately for the rest of my life? Am I in the place where I want to be financially? Am I in the place that I want to be with a relationship? Am I in the place I want to be for a career? And if the answer is no to any of those, it's time to start looking at finding what actually gets you going during the day in all three of those categories. You don't have to be motivated by money, but money is something that we need. If you can find something that brings you money by having enjoyment through that, that's a double win in my mind, you know? And then understanding other people, that's what I do. The communication tools that I give people is to, help them just identify their own style, understanding how they are communicating. Because sometimes just knowing that you're a direct person and you don't ever ask Dorothy how her weekend was, if you just change that one little tweak, because Dorothy is an out in the room processor and enjoys having conversations, she's more people oriented. If I don't ask her that, then I may be missing out on the best of Dorothy in that conversation, because all I needed to do was unlock the door with, "Hey, Dorothy, what'd you do that was really fun this weekend?" And it
NFL
changed.
draft, baby.
What?
NFL draft.
There you go. There you go. See, like I never would have known that Dorothy was all about, loves football. But I mean, it's just one of those things that helps me get a little deeper into a conversation or relationship with somebody than it being so surface. People are so tired of feeling like you don't hear them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
sure.
Beautiful.
That's
And then what about being intentional? What would you recommend for people that are like, yeah, I hear that all the time, but I don't really know how to implement being intentional? What does that mean?
So if you can figure out, even if it makes, make a list of two, the things that you like, if you know that you love riding your bike when it's like 6:30 at night when the sun's gone down, and you like the way that, because it's cooler, and it's just that moment you can just get away from everything, unplug. Write that down, and then if you have to, schedule that time. Being intentional means making that time to get you to a place where you are having different thoughts, not just frustrated day to day, have to do all the things thoughts. Like, this is feeding my soul thoughts, like what do I need to do to feed my soul? And if you can find something, whatever it is, that does that for you, and then you make an effort to do it 1, 2, 3 times a week. You don't have to do it every single week or every single day, but just know that if that's what feeds your soul and you're not doing it, what's happening to your soul? Because your corporate job or the day-to-day mundane thing or paying your bills is definitely not feeding your soul.
Amen. Amen. Those are fantastic. Thank you so much, Shelly. And I know everyone is going to benefit not only from your fundamentals, but from your implementation instructions as well. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Dorothy, back to you.
Thank you so much, ladies. I love that last piece. The how-tos. Some people get caught up in the how-tos, and so Shelly just perfectly demonstrated, what to do in those moments. So thank you to everybody that has watched tonight. Thank you for those of you that are on the replay. For those of you in Roku land, thank you. Welcome. For those of you on Spotify, Welcome. Subscribe wherever you're at, wherever you listen to us, wherever you see us. Please subscribe, share with your friends. We highly encourage you to do that. Let's spread the hope. We are hope dealers here. So spread the hope, bring hope to everyone, because that's what these shows are all about. Thank you so much, Shelly, for sharing your wisdom tonight. Absolutely appreciate you. Don't forget, guys, if you want to change your company culture and have more communication and get more return on investment in your employees, definitely invest in them. Go to shellystarks.com right now, sign up. Or is there anywhere else you would like them to
There's a
seek
form
you
right
out?
on my website that they can reach out to me and we can have a conversation. But thank you both. This is just such a wonderful show and what a great platform to be able to, be authentic. Like just talk about the things that are happening. We can be all canned and make it seem perfect and all of that, but that's not where people are anymore. I think that they're craving for somebody to understand where they're at and what they're going through. And that's why I think having a physical disruptor that happened with me with my radical hysterectomy that put me in a full spiral for months shook me awake to make me say I need to do something different here that gets me on the path that I'm meant to be. And now, when I do these, like I just feel so fulfilled. So thank you for putting the platform together and being the conduit to do that.
Absolutely. Our pleasure. This is what gives me, this is what I love doing. Love meeting people, interviewing them, making them shine, sharing their story. So thank you. I appreciate you saying that.
You're welcome.
All right, guys. Remember, same time, same channel next week. Bye for now. Be unstoppable in all that you do. Bye for now.